Welcome to another episode of the SoleSavy podcast. Today we have a special one. Uh, as most of you have heard, Kanye West has been calling out Adidas all weekend and really for a while now. So we had to bring in the guys from Sneaker Law, Kenneth and Jared. How are you guys doing?
So Marco.
What's going on? Thanks for having us.
Appreciate having you guys, man. Anytime something on the legal side of the sneaker industry gets headlines, I always think of you guys. You guys wrote an incredible book, Sneaker Law. If you haven't picked it up, check it out. You guys have some background working with Yeezy, but more importantly, you guys are experts in this field, and I really want to get your thoughts. There's a lot to go over, so we'll try to just hit the main points today. But let's start with what's going on here, and what are your first impressions from a lawyer working in the sneaker industry when you see this such a public battle between maybe the most influential people in sneakers when it comes to Kanye, and then of course Adidas, a major brand?
Well, I'll just start and first of all give a disclaimer that, as I was general counsel of Yeezy, I can't divulge any confidential information, but we can talk about this generally. And just to start, as a license in a typical license arrangement, the parties will have some disagreements over how intellectual property is handled, how approvals get done, design approvals, and obviously that can change over time as brands and designers grow and get frustrated. So these are natural things. It's not natural that they would air it out over social media in the way that Kanye has. So that's what makes this all exciting. We're seeing it play out in real time.
For sure. Jared, what were your first thoughts seeing this stuff start to hit the internet?
I mean, it wasn't surprising coming from Kanye. And I also think that he's the only individual in this business that could actually do this and actually have a favorable outcome for him. We'll see what happens, but he's obviously unhappy with the deal. This isn't the first time. I mean, when he was unhappy with the Nike deal, he said he was going out to get a deal with royalties, and that's exactly what he did. And he said this was going to be one of the biggest deals of all time in the sneaker industry, and it was. So let's see what the outcome will be. I think that he might go separate ways. They might go their separate ways because I don't know, as a brand, I don't know how you recover from this. Kanye doesn't care. Like the next day, he'll be like, all right, cool, let's go. Let's make another fire sneaker. But for Adidas, I mean, the harm to its brand, through this I think is going to be massive. It's a PR nightmare for them. But let's see what happens.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, even as we speak today, the story continues to unfold. His last Instagram post was calling out Adidas creative director, and now has changed his profile photo to him. So it's interesting to see what's happened over the weekend. He even, I think yesterday, said that he was moving on to Gap. He's already kind of put this offer on the table for Adidas. I want to read this contract to you that he posted to Instagram, and it sounds like it's like he kind of just wrote it pretty quickly. I don't know if a legal team looked over this or not, but Ye's Adidas deal terms: number one, I think these are options. Number one, terminate contract. Two, take back IP. Three, Adidas pays $2 billion to Ye for. And he lists a number of things still in IP: damages to brand, mental health, social standing, family, emotional abuse, blackmail, not opening stores, lying about factory capacity. And then 4, Ye owns and operates Yeezy going forward. Ye will decide Adidas' future role, collaborator, or manufacturing. And then Adidas will get cost of manufacturing plus 10%. So this looks like this is the new deal he wants, and he's been pretty firm about his demands. So I'm sure there is room for wiggle room. But if you're looking at this deal from an Adidas standpoint, weighing out the pros and cons of working with, again, one of the modern day geniuses of our time in the footwear industry and beyond, what are you thinking about this deal? Or does this come off as just something that Ye is doing on social media to kind of create more awareness over this?
I mean, if you look at anytime a settlement or a negotiation takes place, the parties are going to lay out their terms. And so, again, we're seeing this in real time. We're seeing this on social media. Typically, these things would all be kept confidential and probably should be. But that's not how Kanye works. So we're seeing his wish list, I think, here. And interestingly, I think a little bit later that day, just yesterday, after this was posted, he said that they came to a resolution and that he was moving on to Gap. So I don't know if they landed somewhere in the middle. It didn't seem to end in an exit from Adidas. It seemed to end in some kind of amicable resolution. So we'll have yet to see it. I think whatever it was, they probably told him to keep it quiet.
Yeah, I mean, I think first off, what's really important here is intellectual property. He mentioned taking back IP, but then he's also saying stealing my designs. I mean, in a typical deal like this, the brand's going to own the IP. And when you say IP, you're talking trademarks, copyrights, patents, which Adidas has all of those for certain silhouettes of the Yeezy. I know the Slide and the Foam Runner are the big models that he's claiming that Adidas stole. And they have design patents for both of those models. But yeah, I mean, like I said, a typical deal, the brand's going to own that IP. So if they own that IP, they can't technically steal any designs because you can't steal what you already own. I mean, Ye might think that they're stealing it, and I mean, let's keep it real. They are similar. Whether it would actually constitute infringement, I think that's up for debate. You know, I think they've been altered enough where they wouldn't be considered direct knockoffs, but you know, if that's his main argument that, you know, has his designs stolen, I just don't think that would stand because, you know, obviously I haven't seen the agreement, but 99.99% sure that Adidas owns the IP there.
Yeah, if he's demanding full creative control now in this latest request, then I think your point might be correct, because if he already had that, then none of this would be an issue, right? He wouldn't have, none of those colorways that he didn't want would have been approved. So it sounds like he caught himself in a situation where they might have the upper hand when it comes to quote unquote stealing designs, and now he's trying to rewrite that, which I guess this contract is saying that. But yeah, I think I'm with you, and I see this a lot in the footwear industry. Working in it, you get a collaborator who makes a hot shoe, and I like to refer to it as a kind of the trickle down effect of like collaborations. People have different definitions for them. This is just kind of what I learned over the years, especially working at Jordan, is like, let's say you'll get a union, they'll put together a great colorway for like the Jordan 1, the split up top, and it creates this trend, and then Jordan will say, great, we're glad that you created such a dope colorway on our shoe and our IP using our materials, our factories, our colors, and your unique story that's still tied back to our IP. And we're going to go make that now in GR colorways. You got the smoke gray, and then now 2, 3, 4 years later, you get GRs all the time. And there's no doubt that they're using that original union inspiration. But to me, I always just figured if you're playing with the brand's IP, they're going to be able to have creative freedom to do whatever they want with that after it's become successful. And you see that again everywhere, even with Off-White or Alma Maniere. You're seeing those cues, the treatment on shoes, the aging, all that stuff kind of fall into the inline category. And as a brand, why wouldn't you do that? That's the whole point. You pay a collaborator. They're rarely making Yeezys is a different category because he has the entire Yeezy brand. But these big brands are not necessarily after the money that they're going to get on a super limited drop, right? 10, 20, 30, 40,000 units. They're after the money that's going to create, that halo effect is going to create for their inline product, the stuff you ideally go into the mall and get that everyday shopper of, not the super high beast customer who's waiting in line or using SoleSavy trying to get them on release day. So I have been a little shocked to hear him making those claims because we see it so often and other brands kind of borrowing that inspiration for their inline products, right?
You know, I think it's a great comparison. I mean, you have so many examples, you know, Travis ones and then the Mochas.
Of course.
But I think it's a little bit different here because those are colorways. And here you're talking about an actual model where they're directly replicating the model, or not directly replicating, but getting inspiration or whatever you want to call it. But this is not the first time. I mean, other brands have been doing this. I mean, when the Wave Runner dropped, every brand was doing a dad shoe that looked similar. Same thing with the Triple S. People, you know, brands are creating similar models, you know, compared to the Triple S. So, you know, it's not the first time we've seen it. You know, I just think Ye got really pissed this time because he I think that holistically, there's been issues with the deal, which he's voiced. You know, the colorways, doing colorways that he didn't authorize, Yeezy Day, which he said he didn't authorize, bringing back old models like the Turtle Doves. I mean, I think one thing after the next brought him to this point, but this is a common practice in the industry, like you said. I mean, brands and designers have been doing this for many, many years now.
Well, there's no doubt that the brands use designers to reinvigorate their product lines. I mean, when you talk about bringing Union and bringing Jound and bringing all these other designers to reinvigorate retro sneakers, that's certainly the case. Like, Union and Virgil and Don C made twos exciting again, Jordan twos. Like those were sitting on the shelf before they came along. Here we have a situation where nobody's reinvigorating Yeezys per se, but like Jared said, they're making alternative designs, and we call them derivative designs. So like the tubular zooms, I think they're called tubular doom, whatever they were. Those look very much like a 350. And so Kanye is, I think, legitimately upset that, while he is the head designer for Yeezy, Adidas, his own company, is watering down his designs. And, they're doing what they can to make as much money off of the product as they can, because like you said, Marco, the limited sales numbers for these products are not what carry the brand. And it's the GR releases and the average colorways that end up on Zappos and in every mall in middle America that are going to make the company money. These designers come in and do the highest level, and then everything trickles down. So he's seeing it happen to his own brand by his own licensee, and that obviously upsets him.
Yeah, and it sounds like the option for them to say, okay, we're using your inspiration on the Adilets, we're using your inspiration on the Adifom Q. So now you get a cut of that because it is technically your inspiration. It sounds like he doesn't want any of that. He wants to say, from now on, if it's even smells like a Yeezy, it goes through me. And he doesn't seem to be interested in these watered down designs, as you mentioned. But I can also see that being from Kanye, a perfectionist. He doesn't want to even lease out his ideas if they're not going to be finally approved by him. One thing that he did mention that I want to ask you guys about is, he said, I know about the fake Yeezys you're selling in China, which I think immediately you're like, fakes, China's, no. I think he means colorways he didn't approve. Now he's calling official Adidas product fake. I heard some rumblings on Twitter saying that he just refuses to approve things. So at some point they had to start dropping them. But what do you make about that? Does he have does he have the right to just stop them from selling Yeezys because he has this annual deal if he doesn't like them? Because it sounds like one of the things that happened here was he just stopped approving stuff. So they said, well, we're going to go have Yeezy Day and we're going to do all of these things. What legal rights does he have to, if he himself is refusing to approve those things? Can they still make stuff with his name on it?
I'm going to stay out of this one, Jared. If you want to handle it.
I mean, it depends on what's in the agreement. I mean, like any lawyer would say, it depends, but really, without knowing what's in the agreement, it's just speculation. But typically, in an agreement, a collab agreement where he's designing, there'd be some type of approval process where he would approve designs and have creative approval. But a lot of times, the brands don't want to be held hostage. So there's also language in there saying that the approval can be unreasonably withheld. And if that's the case, if Ye is just like taking forever to approve, and there's usually a time frame in there. So if he's not approving, then that means it's being withheld, and Adidas might have the right to say, okay, well, we're going to move forward with this design because Kanye is out here, doing this, doing that, and isn't really focused on this, which could be the case. So, that could be what's happening there. But in terms of the counterfeits, I mean, I highly doubt that's happening. I mean, Adidas spends millions and millions of dollars a year on anti-counterfeiting efforts. It's such a huge issue with them as a brand and the industry as a whole. So the fact that they would be, or the notion that they would be contributing to this, I think is crazy. So I think you might be right. He was calling unauthorized colorways and models as counterfeits, but they're in all actuality not an actual counterfeit.
Yeah. As a follow-up to that, we know that Kanye is displeased with the way that this contract is currently impacting him, his brand, his mental health, things like that. When you flip that and you see him publicly embarrassing the company, berating its employees. He's been particularly harsh on their GM, Daniel Cherry III, who he has identified as maybe the guy running his business and maybe has the most disagreements with. For me, in my experience working at these brands, again, I know nothing about like the internal workings of Adidas, but just by his title, it strikes me as he's the guy who's been assigned to this business, like on a global standpoint. So he's maybe the messenger for all of these things, which is probably a bad place to be when there's disagreements happening. But does Adidas have do you think, or are these type of terms and contracts usually applied when it comes to, hey, you can't publicly call out the board, you can't publicly call out employees? I'm not saying that Kanye would even follow those if they were in the contract, but I would imagine there has to be something that prevents him from doing this. And do you think there is that, or do you think maybe they left it out because they signed that in good faith?
I mean, most of these contracts, not speaking in particular about his, but most of these contracts will have non-disparagement clauses, which basically say that you can't say anything that's publicly, detrimental to the company or makes them cast them in a bad light. So, whether or not that's applicable here, I can't say, but I can say that, if it's being done, they can certainly enforce the contract against him, but there's so many things being discussed about this contract in public that I don't even know if Adidas knows where to start. So I think they just want to make sure that one of their top producers is kept happy, and at the same time that their company isn't brought into bad reputation. And Kanye, I think, knows this. He plays on this. He did it with his record label deals. He was publishing confidential documents on Twitter. You could download every one of his contracts during, I forget what year that was, but it was all there. And I'm sure Universal didn't appreciate that. I'm sure there were provisions of his agreement that he was breaching there too. But he's Kanye West, so he's a once in a lifetime moneymaker for these companies, and it's he gets away with it.
Yeah, I think that despite whatever legal action that he can take against him, publicly calling them out, we already know that no matter what happens, Kanye is going to win in the court of public opinion, right? If you look at his comments, they're flooded with people supporting him. I saw Swiss Beats post and say, hey, we're not supporting these fake Yeezy designs anymore. We're on your side. So I think you're right. Like, Adidas has so much to go over right now that I don't even know if the idea of using his own actions against him is crossing their mind, because you can't win by beating him in court here. You have to win by making him happy, almost, because of how valuable he is as a performer and as a collaborator with them. So yeah, it's interesting that he can almost do whatever he wants, because they can't win where it matters the most to their business, and that is to the fans and to the public opinion.
Yeah, I gotta say that, for us as the people who wrote Sneaker Law and sort of saw this ahead of time, people getting interested and wanting to learn more about the business and legal side of the sneaker industry, there's nothing more exciting. Like, he's putting it all out there and people are taking interest in it. And so for us, this couldn't be more timely.
For sure. Going into, again, everything that's happened, what are like some of these standout details that maybe you think people are overlooking when it comes to what he's publicizing right now? I know we've talked about the slides, we've talked about the colorways and Yeezy Day. Are there any things that, again, haven't necessarily caught the headlines, but you guys as lawyers are saying, oh, whoa, that's like really an interesting point right there, or there's a lot of meat in this section that people aren't really noticing at first glance?
I would say just, it's not really a legal issue, it's more of a business issue, but just, he's calling out, I mean, whether it's true or not, we don't know. We assume it is if he's saying it, but he's just calling out, certain, issues that are wrong with the company. And he's standing up for creatives. And whether you agree with him or not, he's standing up for creatives. And I think this is going to change the way, certain deals in this industry are formulated, and entertainment as well, in general. I think, designers are going to be, and creatives are going to be more empowered to stand up to these brands. They're seeing Kanye do it. And he's led by example in so many different respects in his career, and has paved the way for designers and creatives and musicians and artists. So I think by him just doing this very act, regardless of the outcome, it's really going to help designers and creatives moving forward.
Yeah, I'll just add to that two things. Number one, whenever you're an innovator and somebody who's a first mover in any space, you're going to have people that are going to take your inventions, take your inspiration, and use it sometimes in a more efficient way, sometimes in a more cost beneficial way. It certainly happens in the electric, automobile market with Elon Musk and Tesla. I mean, look at how many more EV cars are on the road today. And I'm not saying that Elon was the first one in an electric car, but certainly the first one to do it big from his own company, his own independent company. And then, so we have Genesis now, we have all these other companies that are out there. And then the other thing that I'd say is, we're only seeing Kanye's side of the story about what Adidas hasn't done. We're not seeing Adidas' side of the story about what Kanye hasn't done. And so, we would need some insight into what Kanye's obligations are under his agreement and whether or not he's held up his end of the bargain. So like you say, whether or not he made certain design approvals, whether or not he approved certain colorways, whether he was taking too long, all of these things are not being played out. And I'm sure Adidas is fuming about certain things on their end too.
Yeah, you mentioned him kind of rewriting the rules of how creatives work with big brands. And I mean, even Kanye, like, it feels like an understatement to call him a creative because he's such a force, a generational force. But it kind of reminds me a lot of the NBA right now. It's a players league now, where it was traditionally a owners league, and we're trying to see how that power struggle plays out in free agency and people holding out and people demanding trades. In the last few years, largely in part thanks to Kanye, I've noticed the sneaker industry become a designer's business again, or for the first time, maybe a designer's league, a players league, right? Where the designers, the collaborators, even if they're not signed directly to that brand, are able to, again, create their own rules, because these brands are starting to realize that the true power and, quite frankly, the money lies in these guys, these people's influence. So it is interesting to see that Kanye is kind of kicking that door down, right or wrong in this situation, for creatives in the future to have a say. And I think by him posting the board, the entire board, or some sort of the leadership council for Adidas, he was proving a pretty interesting point, because most of those people, Adidas is a German company headquartered in Germany, but I think one of the things he did, either directly or indirectly, was saying, hey, look at all these people making decisions on my business and my influence. Most of them aren't even based in North America, where I don't know the official numbers, where I would say is one of the main markets for Yeezy, and obviously Kanye's home and influence is the US. So I think he is trying to prove this point, to say, hey, if I'm this important, why do all these people have more power than me? Or why are they all able to override me? Which, again, I think you're starting to see in the NBA a lot too, with free agents saying, hey, I don't care if you own this. People are coming to see me play. People want to come play here. Like the KD Nets thing comes to mind first for me there. But yeah, interesting stuff. And like you said, really exciting too, because we've never seen this played out. So to close things, I want to ask you guys, I know we're all fans of sneakers and of course of Kanye here. What are your genuine predictions on how this shakes out? How do you see this coming to a resolution? I'll go ahead and go first. I think the best option, if you're looking at both from Adidas, is to try to make amends with him, right? Because there's no question that he turned around that entire business and the way that they're viewed. So I think that's my prediction, is they're going to try to do what we've been talking about here, saying, okay, how do we make this guy happy? But I also feel like Kanye's in a position now where he can truly go independent. Independent sneakers are on the rise. Before we started recording, we talked about how we just made the SoleSavy 4 with industry veteran designers, made it with a local manufacturer in Philly, Garrickson. So that's not as crazy of an idea as it would have been when Kanye maybe left Nike, but still probably a lot of money from investors. And he is famously went broke funding his own ideas, so I don't think he wants to go down that route again, despite being a billionaire. I don't think anybody wants to go down that route. So there's a big risk there without the big backing. So, but I think that they resolve this, or even potentially license the Yeezy Adidas line, and then Kanye is able to kind of go free and move around every brand sort of like Ronnie's a great example, right? He can work with whoever he wants. Probably signs on campaigns or partnerships for that. But yeah, I'd be curious to see what your guys' predictions are there.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, I agree with that. That obviously Adidas is going to try to resolve it, but like I said earlier, I just think that the harm to the brand is going to be too great for them. Maybe they'll, finish out the agreement, the term of the agreement, and then go their separate ways. And it's very possible. I mean, we saw that Forbes shoot where he had all those unreleased models in the circle. I mean, I would say that Adidas owns all of that IP as well, because, it was created during the term of the contract. Again, it depends on what the contract says, but Adidas could continue to release Yeezys way past this agreement, and also retro. I mean, they've been retroing. I wouldn't call it a retro, but they keep re-releasing certain models. So I think that they would be good either way. I mean, obviously they would be way better off with Yeezy, but I think that, it's going to dissolve, I think, and Kanye is going to go his own separate way. And, it's not even, you mentioned independent. I mean, it would be considered independent, but Yeezy such a huge brand. I mean, a multi-billion-dollar brand, and he's created certain shoes, not sneakers, on his own when he was doing clothes with Yeezy. I mean, he was doing boots and, certain dress shoes and obviously heels. So I think he'd be fine either way, and he just needs to find a good manufacturer, and I think he'd be good. He'd be set. He definitely has the money and the bread to do it. So I think that's going to happen. I mean, I may be wrong, but let's see. I mean, it's going to be exciting either way.
Yeah, and Kenny, before you go, two things that come to mind. The first one is he does have it in his contract, right, that he can't create casual shoes with Adidas. That's why we've seen the boots and the heels come through his other Yeezy line. So, I mean, we all know Kanye. Kanye put a whole generation plus of people onto other people's sneakers, whether it be Jordans or Adidas, etc. So there's no doubt in my mind that he probably has a ton of ideas spinning that aren't Adidas sneakers, because his contract has said you can't make non Adidas casual sneakers. So I'd be curious to see what he has in the vault there. Second one was about them owning the IP. I saw an interesting thread and tweet from Nate Jones on Twitter saying it was, I think it was him who said it's pretty simple. Like, you see these brands released, it was he had a great thread, and there was another tweet I saw too that was like, you see all of these famous Nike athletes, their shoes get released all the time without them. Like Nike owns the IP, so they will just take their name off it, whether it's the Deion Sanders or the Bo Jacksons, etc. Like, I think as sneakerheads, people get upset, like, well, why didn't you tell the story? And then the truth is, it's money, right? It's if it's not in the contract, or they didn't re-sign it, they didn't agree, Nike's going to keep dropping those. So I'd be curious to see what that looks like for Adidas. I think it was Black Trey who tweeted that last thought about how Nike does it all the time. So it wouldn't be the first time we've seen brands start releasing stuff without them. But
Adidas is going to be dropping Kobe's without his name and likeness on it, the original Kobe's. So Adidas is showing that they have no problem doing it. They just can't say Kobe.
Yeah.
So I mean, what's stopping them from doing that with Kanye?
Yeah, no,
and we saw earlier this year Kyrie complain that he didn't approve the recent model of his shoe, and that's when he is signed to Nike. So there's all kinds of things that happen in these license arrangements where the company's going to move no matter what they do. Me personally, like, I would love to see Kanye take his sneaker line independent. I mean, he certainly did it with the stem player. Like Jared said, he had his Yeezy line. We haven't seen much come from there in a while, and a lot of people are missing that. He certainly wouldn't have the range of distribution and support, marketing support, and all the things that Adidas comes with. But does he need that when he has the support of the people and the reach that he comes with? So it's just a matter of him understanding that supply chain and doing it on his own, which is challenging. Like, everybody's struggling with supply chain issues. If you want to really make a brand pop, you have to have access to the product and the pipeline and the logistics and all of those things. So I would love to see him take it independent. But as you guys suggested, I think he's going to work it out with Adidas. I would love also for him to get a board seat, because Marco, like you were saying before, he posted all those pictures of people that have influence over his brand, but none of them look like him, and I think that's a big problem in this industry, is that the people making decisions on behalf of the creators don't represent what the creators do and don't represent what the industry consumers represent. So I think that's something that I'd love to see, and I think would really push our industry forward.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think at the very least, we'll see some innovation come out of this, whether it's innovating how people write contracts, innovating how people release shoes, or even innovating how sneaker brands come to life if he does go that route. Hey, I appreciate you two guys for joining me. If you guys are interested in learning more about all the legal and business sides of the sneaker industry, you have to check out the Sneaker Law book. I'm telling you, it's also a great coffee book too, with incredible imagery in it. So appreciate you guys again. I have a feeling that we're going to be chatting again soon if you guys are free, because this thing feels like it's far from over. But in the meantime, at least we have a little bit more clarity from a legal expertise perspective. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.